Walking along a meandering stone path within a lower middle-class community, the Fallen's Fellowship arrived to a simple yet sweet yard with swaying palm trees and clusters of pink-blossomed succulents that offered a nice pop of vibrancy against the neutral desert palette. This being the quaint property of Faisal and his niece, the requester Farah Chatti. Upon being greeted inside, Gribble and Lux instantly took notice of the entrance lock mechanism above the doorknob. Between their thieving history and Lux securing a natural 20 from Gribble's help, the duo zoned in on the keyhole as Lux noticed a sliver of metal, barely perceivable to the humanoid eye. She carefully slipped it out from the lock to closer analyze, recognizing it's a frayed part of a thieves' tool. It would only splinter like this if someone was using the classic aggressive rookie angle. Whenever the last attempt was, they failed in a rather juvenile way, and thus isn't seeming like some criminal mastermind. The player party took comfort in the living room, while snacking on freshly made kebabs Farah served, as you all were getting acquainted. Faisal's description of his niece seemed to be accurate. She is a bit of a soft-spoken teenager, very kind, considerate, and polite, but anxiously filled with self-doubt, worry, and seemed a bit easily confused. Symptoms of someone who has clearly been through a lot and has not gotten enough sleep for quite some time now. Farah was quite impressed by how well-spoken and considerate Gribble was, paying him a warm compliment about his remarkable maturity at his age. The comment gave poor Thoatham a painful coughing fit, while Mimith and Tarth strained themselves into wearing their best poker faces. Farah continued to praise how Gribble must have been raised by wonderful parents, which is when Lux leaned in to wrap her arm around her sweet goblin boy, while telling Farah, "Why, thank you for noticing." Thoatham, Mimith, and Tarth grit their teeth uncomfortably as their eyes unceremoniously twitched. Only made worse as Farah beamed brightly at Lux, calling her an angel for adopting and raising such a sweet child, and doing an incredible job. At that point, the other three party members needed to step away to recompose themselves a moment. Once the greetings were set aside and you all got down to business, Farah was acting a little bit shifty when she asked you all to recap what her uncle had shared already, she claiming that she didn't want to waste your time and repeat anything already said. Tartholomew passed an insight check, determining her nervous posture suggested she didn't quite trust that her uncle shared everything with them. The party caught on to this and tried to persuade her into sharing whatever else she felt might be important, but failed. Farah closed up and simply stated it was nothing. She was just letting her anxiety get to her and didn't want to add any unnecessary distractions nor burden others. Farah led the party to review a series of stones that had been thrown into their windows with ominous messages painted onto them. Ghosts in the hall, awaiting for your fall, watching you sleep, comfortably deep, a peace you can't keep, you are very pretty screwed, you should run, because you can't hide. Between these eerie messages and the dead animals around the property, Thoatham wondered if this might be some crazed animal activist targeting Farah. Lux concurred with that train of thought, asking Farah if she dissected animals for medical school, and Farah went wide-eyed.
Yes. Oh no. Did I contribute to animal cruelty? I am so sorry.
Some in the party raised a brow at just how quickly this girl is to blame herself, while others came in to comfort and reassure her innocence. The use of humanely euthanized animals is necessary for education, which is to further the endeavor of helping people in need. But Farah became anxiously preoccupied with this train of thought being a potential motive against her. As Tartholomew took investigative focus of tracks in the yard, the only thing recent other than humanoid footprints was that of a small feline. Thotham pondered if Farah knew of any animal rights activist groups at her med school or potentially some crazed druids cult. Farah choked up.
Well, if there are any, they aren't doing a very good job.
Tarth also took minor offense to the suggestion that a druid would waste their time haunting a med student. I gotta say, it's quite amusing to see how quickly off-base players can get with a detail. Hindsight, right folks? Anywho, seeking more clues to defend his fellow druids, Tarth closer inspected the heads of the animals left outside, and with a nature check was able to deduce the body parts weren't likely left here by any psychopath. That is, unless you think cats are psychopaths, they do tend to enjoy playing with their food before killing it. The animal parts in the yard had clear, tiny piercing and slash marks. When asked, Farah did recall encountering an orange tabby cat a few times that hissed at her in the yard when she truly just wanted to be friends. Between the juvenile lockpicking job and the presence of a cranky tabby cat, the story of a mentally fucked professional rogue was quickly falling apart. Nonetheless, Farah backed up that she herself had seen the stalker outside, and her uncle did shoot them. Farah became pleasantly surprised to hear Gribble and Lux's assessment of the juvenile lockpicking job. She held her hand over her chest and released a big breath of relief. Farah now revealing that this incident couldn't be related to the one from her past. The bit of information the party failed to persuade Farah into sharing now came into light. This is not the first time poor Farah has been stalked. The previous stalker was a murderous creep. 3 years ago, when Farah was just 14 years old, her parents had purchased her a new bigger bed, and upon swapping the furniture out, discovered an audio recorder taped under the far corner of her bed. It was before the runic models were released. so connective wires were fed through the bottom of the floor, of which should have led to nowhere. But this event had the family realize they had a secret basement that was cemented off. And someone was living right under their noses and recording their youngest daughter for only God knows how long. Farah's father, Amir, along with Uncle Faisal and a few police officers, crafted a plan to catch this culprit. But they were outwitted, as upon sneaking in, an explosion triggered off, collapsing the building greatly on top of them all. Amir and most of the cops were crushed and killed. Faisal and another cop were the only survivors, but not unscathed. This event is where all of Faisal's scars came from. Faisal was forced to play dead, as a red-skinned tiefling with gallus tattoos on his neck stood over the rubble and laughed at them all before making his escape. Lux raised a skeptical brow at the culprit description. Not that it isn't possible. But Gallus-worshipping tieflings are a common, racist, fear-mongering trope, used to justify mistreatment of the entire race, who faced a genocide just a few millennia ago, led by the mortal Wexner, before he slayed the goddess Mistra and stole her place on the pantheon. The god Gallos, often titled the Collateral Collector, is an icon of excessive revenge, he who promises a double-edged sword. Tyr worshippers would say Gallos distorts paths of justice for paths of becoming the same monsters that hurt us. This deduction adds onto the trope of tieflings being dumb, desperate, vengeful little imps. It feels a bit too contrived that a random Gallos-worshipping tiefling stalked a girl and killed her family without any personal vendetta. Gribble pulled Lux aside, also noticing something interesting about this part of Farah's story. Gallos being titled the Collateral Collector. It might just be coincidence, but it's a bit peculiar that Uncle Faisal is also titled the Collector. But the thought was set aside as Farah insisted that she too, along with her neighbor, have personally witnessed this new stalker on the property themselves. The Collector, Farah stated, was a play on words for the fact Faisal collects a lot of things, and his new job after retiring his body from construction work is a municipal tax collector. The present stalker situation is truly starting to seem like an entirely unrelated occurrence from the supposed Gallos worshipping tiefling of her past. But, continuing Farah's story, the Gallos stalker returned to kill Farah's mother and older sister. The girl's mother had moved them to the Seward Spire, which is far safer than Pellin's Spire. It's a common cute tradition there, that when you get a new neighbor, everyone makes their best desserts and showers the newcomers with them. Farah remembers being so enamored by the many baked goods left at their door, but avoided eating the extra creamy rice pudding, as she's severely lactose intolerant. Well, investigators found the rice pudding was poisoned with something criminally fierce. Farah's mother and sister passed away in the night, foaming at the mouth before they could even try to get help. At the bottom of the pudding container, stamped small, was the symbol of fucking Gallos. If not for Farah's milk allergy, she would have consumed that and died alongside them. Protective services allowed Farah to stay in Seward Spire to finish high school. Then her uncle Faisal stepped up, uprooted his life from Pellin's Spire and took Farah under his wing, moving them both to Kirasavu to get as far away as possible from whoever this serial-killing, perverted, Gallos-worshipping stalker was, that which the authorities never caught. Faisal and Farah's shared trauma has kept them very closely bonded. She expressed, Faisal is all she has left. This new rookie stalker coincidentally showing up is just gouging wounds that still haven't had the chance to close up. Upon hearing the story, the Fallen's Fellowship felt uneasy and wanted to play it safe, deciding then and there they needed to take a look around the home. This confused Farah, as she thought you all were on the same page, that the revelations meant this isn't the work of the Gallos stalker. Nonetheless, the party gave the home's common areas a look over, though some rooms were more skimmed than others. Thotham out loud mentioned to the party he was looking for any curious scuff marks on the floor that might indicate suspicious furniture being moved over and over again. Nothing like that was found at this moment. But this very line made for some intriguing foreshadowing. Now feeling satisfied that none of the common areas were compromised with secret entrances, the party set their worry aside and moved on to plotting how they would capture this other stalker, eventually compiling a very thorough plan you all spent a long time on. Gotta say, the DM is blessed to have players that actually plan things. Love you all for that. Tarthalimu druidically polymorphed into a giant cave spider, climbing himself up a palm tree. Thothum closed himself off into the shed. Mimith remained inside with Farah to protect her, while Gribble and Lux took to the roof for an aerial view, Renrev flying up even higher to scout the property. The party set up snare spells and awaited Gribble's whistle to indicate sights on this annoying stalker, and as 10:30 p.m. rolled around, our stalker appeared along with a furry companion. Per usual, DM plans do not survive contact with the players. Fuckity fuck. Whatever. This small-statured prowler literally walked straight into the invisible snare spell and failed her dexterity save to escape. Yeah, all of you were using he pronouns, but the DM absolutely never specified the gender. Breaking news. The Fallen's Fellowship is fucking sexist. At the same time as the girl's capture, her orange tabby companion was jumping to the roof to reach higher ground, and unfortunately bumped into our platinum killer. Lux quickly manhandled the feline, tying up its paws, and threw him into a bag of the very animal heads he was rudely leaving behind. By the way, player Cheryl, Asterion does not approve. Bartholomew in his spider form leapt to the snared prowler, who ear-piercingly screeched in fucking horror of him. Everyone moved in to quickly tie up the culprit, who happened to not be a small-raced individual, but is actually a half-elven 13-year-old, as she bitterly scorned all of you for using excessive force on a kid. Turns out this property used to be her home. Her name is Nandi, the cat is Helix. Her mother, Habiba, was a former member of the Ladies of Laurels, a silver-ranked adventuring group. The proudly local Born Party built this house together for Habiba when she was pregnant with Nandi and retired from being an adventurer. But for reasons not given, Habiba fell into massive debt, and at some point the property taxes on the home accumulated to the point of losing the asset. Nandi glared at Farah, calling her a gentrifying colonizer for her and her shitty uncle stealing their home. Supposedly, Nandi, after being evicted while she falsely claiming she had other family to stay with, attempted to plead with Faisal to let her back into her home so that she could get some of her and her mother's stuff back. But Faisal shooed her away, kicked dirt at she and Helix while telling her to beat it, or else he'd call the cops and have her locked up. It's unclear if Faisal is presently aware that the stalker is the same girl. Bartholomew asks Nandi where her mother was now, and Nandi's sassy bravado slightly wilted, as she turned her gaze into the far distance while scornfully answering, "I don't know." Bartholomew passed his insight check to follow her gaze, which was clearly focused in the direction of Zambu. Then, piecing together the fact the mother ended up finding herself in massive debts. Nandi was stuck fending for herself when her mom was sent away, so not to be sent to foster care. The house has been in Faisal's name for about a year now, which means Nandi's family tax debts had to have been accumulating again well before that point. It sounds like Habiba met a similar fate to that of Norik Chattelbottom, earned her right to be released debt-free, but was another victim of the black market organ harvesting being committed by the sum of the Greater Mother's awakened ones, who were funneling the blood and body parts to the Bleeding Silks gang in Kamasa Faedan. Habiba's false release would have resulted in local and property taxes piling up again in her name until it was eventually steep enough for the government to seize and sell it to Faisal. Despite evidence suggesting Habiba has been long dead, any desperate hope Nandi had that her mother would maybe come back died a little over a month ago along with your friends in Zambia. Hence, Nandi's recent escalations in her stalking habits of Farah and Faisal gradually becoming more volatile, brazen, and frequent. Farah was stunned at the realization of her stalker just being an angsty tween. Though taking some relief it wasn't a perverted murderer. Farah insisted with her full heart she had no idea about any of this, but struggled to believe her uncle would treat a child so cruelly. Her uncle has been her rock and kind protector for as long as she can remember. This isn't a side of him she has ever seen. Lux pieced together a rather unsavory picture of a tax collector who may have slammed this family faster on tax debt due dates for his own gain. Then able to get himself a sweeter deal on a house that otherwise should be appraised highly for being built by local folk heroes. It seems the collector may have more quickly displaced the very family of the renown he sought to add to his esteemed collection. Fucking depraved, if so. Lux tauntingly assured Nandi that she'd never see her precious cat Helix again unless she resolved to leave Farah alone. Nandi met Lux's dark gaze after staring up and down her roguish appearance and thug demeanor, her bitter voice not wavering.
"And what would you do if you were the one suddenly displaced from your home by some friggin' schmuck who kicked dirt on you?
Lux didn't hesitate to answer honestly.
Easy. I would kill them.
Nandi gave a smug smirk.
Oh, is that advice I hear?
Gribble came up from behind, trying to whisper that from one kid to another, she shouldn't push her luck right now in the position she is in.
All right, that's enough.
Thotham stepped in to break up the squabble, trying to more gently reason with Nandi.
Look, I know the situation is not fair, and what Faisal did was not okay, but it's not Farah's fault. Surely there must be something to make things right and let you two move past this.
But Bartholomew pushed back on that, pointing out, this is likely a homeless child we're all dealing with. He felt there has to be a better answer for her too, other than leave them alone. But is there? You can't save them all, folks. But feel free to try, I guess. Nandi, who cares for nothing else more than her precious cat, Helix, as that's all she has left, resigned her loss. Stating she's aware most of her old belongings are likely long gone now, but has hopes her Adventurers League cards from her mother's old group are still intact in the secret compartment of her old bedroom. If Farah could be kind enough to let Nandi check for herself, this vagabond would drop the beef and just be happy to be reunited with her mother, Habiba, in some metaphorical way. Farah eagerly agreed, offering Nandi to help herself to some kebabs and tea if she wished. But the little half-elf, happily reunited with her cat now, scurried upstairs to Farah's room, which used to be her own. Blocking the way of this secret compartment was Farah's antique wardrobe. It was bolted, secured to the wall, not an uncommon thing to see in regions with tumultuous weather. That helps prevent furniture from getting knocked over and hurting people during earthquakes and such. But without the proper tools, it required a high athletics check to rip it from the wall without hurting the precious furniture piece, which, thankfully, Thotham managed to do with ease. Farah watched, confused. She had no idea there was a mini closet behind her dresser. Upon discovery, the mini door to the mini crawl space was already opened. And fucking strangely, behind the wardrobe duct taped to it was a runic audio recorder. The open door acted as a slot to help keep the bureau flush with the wall, and the audio recorder perfectly hidden. Lux immediately recognized the recorder as being a government-issued one, commonly used to record meetings. She remembered this model from her time secretly working for Mimith's uncle, Tyrul Iskal. Nandi was bug-eyed, proclaiming to her surprise that there has been a massive extension to the tiny closet-sized crawl space. Farah began to tremble and gasped. It seems all this time she might not have been paranoid after all. The party's gut instinct also validated now. They have another stalker to hunt. Nandi went from a sassy brat to pissed her cards are missing to now excited to help investigate. Just like her adventurer mom did once upon a time. This wardrobe did not have scuff marks on the floor as Thotham earlier wondered about. So clearly the creepy stalker wasn't using this entrance to get in and out of wherever this Frogger's tunnel leads. Only people shorter than 5 feet would be able to squish themselves small enough to crawl through the mini door frame here. The tunnel offered more room to stretch out though. This dilemma immediately formed 2 teams. Tunnel team was comprised of Tartholomew, Gribble, and Nandi to navigate the dark passageway. Then, investigative team Thotham, Mimith, and Lux would need to find the mysterious other way into the secret passage, needing to more thoroughly strip the house for answers as Farah was too shaken by all this to be of any help. She was already distressed and starkly against children going into the tunnel, terrified that if this was the work of the gallows-worshipping tiefling from her past, then surely the place would be rigged with the very explosive traps that killed her beloved father. But the party told Farah that everything is just fine, and she didn't have to worry about a thing. Famous last words. Thotham went to explore the bathroom, which had a rather luxurious bathtub, the pride and joy of the house. He turned the water on just for curiosity's sake. After a while, he heard a faint double-clicking sound that came from a strange copper box that was attached to some of the wall pipes. A slight reflective mirror poked out, and when ripping the box open, some sort of Frankenstein device was inside. A mini latex balloon of sorts was attached to the side of the box, which was connected to one of the water pipes. That bag over time fills with water when turned on, and as the bag gets bigger, it eventually builds enough force to push into the button of this device and activate whatever the fuck it is. The reflective mirror seemed to be a source for capturing light, which is what some older cameras needed in order to snap photographs from dark spaces without a flash. When Farah was confronted about this device, she didn't know what to make of it. Faisal told her the box was a water purifier of sorts, to help remove toxins and enrich the natural minerals for a healthier bath. She's not an engineer. She has no idea how the fuck it's all supposed to work. At this point, Lux had enough of the obtuse goody two-shoes and began to tear into her, trying to force her to face the music of what all these indications of the home are leading up to, that Faisal has likely isolated this poor girl for his own sick pleasures. But from Farah's point of view, that's massively jumping to conclusions. We just resolved that the stalker was a little girl, and she had some bad things to say about Faisal. But doesn't he deserve a chance to explain his side of the story and what happened to Nandi? He might not have had any idea the stalker was a little girl. And Faisal is covered in scars from his own face-off against the gallows-worshipping tiefling. He might not have any idea about the house extension or wonky water mineralizer. Even if he was bad to Nandi, jumping to calling him a murderous pedophile was a huge fucking stretch right now. It could be a pedo plumber for all we fucking know. But Lux wasn't budging, continuing to demand access to Faisal's room, but Farah refused, blocking the way while stating she didn't like Lux's forceful tone and knew her uncle wouldn't appreciate their privacy being violated by accusational strangers. Freedoms shouldn't be infringed based on mere suspicions, right? And as far as Farah was concerned, you all already technically completed the job. You got the stalker, Nandi. So Farah offered then and there to close out the case with the guild and send you all on your way to get paid, where she and her uncle would handle the rest of the current situation somehow. To be honest, I'm surprised Lux didn't jump at that offer. The 200 gold is clearly off the table at this point since you don't want to kill Nandi. Doing this extra work is of no financial benefit to the Fallen's fellowship. I'd expect the insistence of charitably continuing the task from Thotham, Mimith, and Tarth. But Lux and Gribble surprised me here with their strong desire to see this through to the end without any promise of reward. Could it be? Is that character development I smell? Folks, I think I might be a bit teary-eyed. Anywho, back to the negative tensions. Thotham tried stepping in to defend Farah from Lux's harsh words, pleading with Lux to change her approach before making things worse. The only thing Farah could offer was asking her uncle's permission to let them break into his room by using the sending stone he left her. But she only had one, and it was meant for an emergency in case something happened while he was on the road, before he could get to a phone. Thotham and Mimith started to amuse Farah's idea as Lux curled her lip. aggravated that her fellow party members were remotely entertaining, alerting what may potentially be the enemy. Thotham crossed his arms, stating Lux's pushy behavior was also getting on his nerves. Mimith just went quiet, not sure what to do with the rising inter-party tensions, deciding then to slink away to try and sneak into Faisal's room herself, while the other three fought with one another. But unfortunately, it was locked, and there was no way she'd be able to break in without clearly alerting Farah. So Mimith's tail drooped, and she retreated, as Lux was theatrically accusing Farah of aiding and abetting a Galos worshipper. The three-way argument was going nowhere. Mimith interrupted to try and cut the tension, asking Farah what her favorite flower was. Farah confusingly answered with azaleas before turning her attention back to Lux, passionately defensive that she would never help a Galos worshipper after everything that happened to her own family. Mimith slinked away again, now to dissociate from the anxiety-inducing fighting and work on a little art project. That's when Gribble managed to bust a lock with ease, much to Tarth's surprise, as he didn't think the goblin capable. Ate his words and continued the rest of the session being Gribble's weird but strangely charming, druid chanting cheerleader. Our very capable goblin now climbing up a ladder from the secret underground bunker, finding himself under the clawfoot bathtub of the home. Duct-taped next to the floor's small overflow drain, but underground, was yet another creepy audio recorder. Gribble shouted, asking if anyone could hear him, as everyone made their way to the bathroom. Farah panicked once again, about such a sweet child being down in the lair of what might be the gallows stalker. Farah was desperately pleading with all of you to understand the explosive danger you were placing children into. She begged to please cease this madness. To which Lux quipped with a salty tone that they could wrap this job up faster if Farah stopped obstructive to the damn investigation. Mimith finished her art project and interjected to sweetly present Farah with a beautiful painting of azaleas. But unfortunately, there's a time and place where your paintings will help make people feel better, or may potentially make them feel worse. Doing so in the middle of Farah having traumatizing revelations while in the midst of high-stakes, intensive arguing. Sorry, Mimith, we know you absolutely meant well, but this is an example of a not good time. Going forward, you just want to be careful to not uncomfortably put people on the spot. This is what happened with Farah, who expressed feeling whiplashed by the divided party's antics and gave a short, confused thanks before setting the painting aside to continue her argument with Lux. Gribble tried cutely de-escalating the situation himself by shouting from underneath the drain, but Farah was already too overstimulated at this point. Lux tired of both Farah's denial and Thotham's lecturing tone, so she stepped away with an annoyed cadence, but stopped to ask Mimith to get the bathwater running as Lux made exit of the house, walking around back. Thotham carried on speaking with Farah, trying to do damage control and state that
Lux means well and is just concerned but sucks at showing it.
Meanwhile, out back, Lux ascended up to the roof and wedged a grappling hook into place, now sliding down her rope to suspend herself next to the window of Faisal's bedroom. Like the experienced prowler she is, Lux wedged the crowbar in and jostled the window enough to slip inside. Thanks to Thotham unwittingly distracting Farah and the sound of Mimith letting the bathtub fill, the coursing water echoing out loudly in the house, Lux's forced entry went undetected. Moral of the story, fail forward if you fail your persuasion check to get past the guard. Don't give up. Usually when there's a will, there's a way. Thotham's foreshadowed words from earlier came flooding back, as Lux noticed curious scuff marks on the floor in front of Faisal's wardrobe. Only a sissy-ass lock that kept the wardrobe bolted to the wall stood in Lux's way for like 2 seconds, and as Lux moved the wardrobe from the wall, she finally found evidence that could not be denied. In Farah's room above her bed is a mirror, but here in Faisal's room, it's actually a window, giving him a nearly full view of her bedroom. Also behind his wardrobe was a large floor lever. Lux tried to pull it, but that fucker wouldn't budge. So it was time for the grand reveal, as Lux unlocked Faisal's door from the inside and greeted Farah and Thotham from behind. A myriad of emotions came over Farah's face. Surprise, confusion, betrayal, and surprisingly, even a little bit of anger. Farah at first felt violated and as if she needed to protect her uncle from this criminally brazen Eladrin. But as Farah stepped into the room to confront Lux, our rogue now took a softer tone and urged Farah to please just look behind the wardrobe and see for herself. And as Farah's gaze turned to see into her own bedroom, she froze. Thankfully, Farah passed her wisdom save to not go into denial, as she now looked back at Lux with a sad and guilty expression. Lux then eyed Thotham, asking him to help with the lever. This damned contraption was difficult to pull, and required Mimith's help. It felt like it was controlling a massive interlocking network of contraptions. It's a curiosity how Faisal is able to pull this damn thing. Bringing us back to the underground tunnels, a homemade alphabet book that was made by Faisal and gifted to Farah as a child was found on the bookshelf upstairs in the house. Some of the alphabet word choices were kind of fucking creepy. But Gribble only paid attention to the book when he noticed that some pictures within seemed to match the runes on the reinforced door, blocking his, Tarth's, and Nandi's path forward. The 4 runes represented knight, eagle, owl, and penguin, which Gribble was able to successfully realize the first letter is what mattered, thus sorting the runes to spell the word open successfully evading what would have been a high-stakes suffocation trap if the wrong answer was submitted. And now the two kids and a rabbit made their way into Faisal's secret lair. The room had a heavy aura to it, that which only either the strong or twisted could thrive in. But you weren't sure if that feeling was a natural occurrence, or entirely psychosomatic from the intensity of the job so far. Tarth first took attention towards the desk, as he found a dress laid out beside a picture of Farah wearing it. It was placed next to a box with nice tissue paper. A runic phonograph record player sat empty in the corner beside a thick clipboard containing financial information about Faisal. Confirmation of his massive debt needing to repay back some loans. Some recent expenditures were the runic security system and a string of fines for regularly losing audio recorders or returning them late to work. But none of these items came remotely close to the cost of the materials and rapid construction of this underground bunker pre-move in date. Faisal has two sources of income. One that comes from his municipal job, and also his small business, titled the Voyeur's Collection, which an income log demonstrates sales of action figures, trading cards, and some curiously unnamed items that seem to fetch a far higher price than the geeky shit. From the paperwork, it's evident that if Faisal doesn't keep on top of payments, both he and Farah will lose this home in a similar fashion that Nandi did. Distracting Tarth and Gribble, unfortunately preventing them from finding the last hidden item on the desk, above head, suddenly, a large locomotive mechanism began to creak and squeal! Some concrete clamps held on the sides of the drain became loosened and pulled away. Tarth shimmied up the ladder, now able to just push the thick-ass drain cover up and over. Then, very cautiously, Tarth poked his long ears and curious rabbit head out slow and nervous, and just as he did that, Thothum had stepped into the shed, and as his tall gaze looked down, startled by Tarth's head floating from the darkness on the floor, the two men screamed at the sight of each other. Tarth sliding down the ladder as Thothum booked it out of the fucking shed, leaving Lux and Mimith confused for a moment, but mutually glad to see the damn drain was released thanks to the lever in Faisal's room. After the men recovered from their shared jump scare, the player party along with Nandi and Helix were now together in Faisal's lair. The shelf in this stone bunker contained varying collector's items for sale, including Nandi's precious Adventurers League cards, reunited with her mother once again in some small symbolic way. Another lever near the desk appeared to be jammed. Despite being a lower DC, Mimith and Thothum helping each other couldn't get it to budge. That's when Tarth came up with the idea to create a pulley-type system with rope that everyone assisted with, and successfully got that pesky lever dislodged. Turning it left reclamps the drain above. Turning it right drops a stone door revealing yet another secret room extension. Jesus fuck, this guy went all fucking out to maximize his creep meter. The party found themselves in a dark room. Lux recognized was meant to help develop photography. A shelf lined with bins labeled from varying years. A very fast look into the bin labeled with our current year was revealed to contain many photos and audio recordings of poor Farah entirely unaware. Lux snapped it shut to respect Farah's privacy. Yet another runic puzzle awaited you, this time blocking entry into a chest. After a few minutes of tinkering through Faisal's creepy alphabet book, you deduced the decoded word to be sesame. Go figure. Inside the chest, aside from loot, was an old journal of Faisal's. It told the depressing story of his childhood, detailing nearly every form of abuse you can think of from his own parents. Whenever his older brother, Amir, was sleeping or away, Amir was always favored and coveted, while Faisal was treated like a dog. The brothers' relationship was strained until they became adults. Amir grew up to be a respected doctor. Faisal grew up to be a weirdo construction worker, always envying his older brother, especially his happy, loving family. Faisal developed a new sort of jealousy as his baby niece Farah began butting into her own personality. Child Farah took the most interest in her pitiful uncle's hobbies that the older sister never did. In the journal, Faisal blames his abusive upbringing for his long-held attraction to Farah. He goes on to self-justify his actions by stating his brother Amir was playing with fire by letting his daughters meet with their fiendish parents, as if nothing ever happened. As if Amir never believed Faisal. From Faisal's sick point of view, he feels he saved and spared Farah from learning the reality of her grandparents firsthand. He believes that so long as he doesn't physically touch Farah, that's all that matters. His writing becomes defensive as he details that he needs the money from her natural beauty to keep them both afloat in this sick and unfair world. He thinks he was chosen by the god Gallos to suffer trials and earn his right to a blissful life with Farah. Faisal seems to think, after everything that's happened, that Farah will want to live with her knight in tinfoil armor uncle forever. That is, so long as she doesn't find out that he is the one responsible for the deaths of their family. And with that nauseating bit out of the way, the party was equipped with everything they needed. Plenty of evidence, magical loot, some of which was difficult to get. And you even got back Nandi's playing cards. And yet, one other lever remained. Unlike the other two levers, this one demanded an investigation check before the DM would allow you to pull, which was unfortunately failed. All the excitement of secret tunnels, secret bunkers, and secret rooms left Mimith salivating about what other secret remained with this lever. She was initially going to lunge and pull it before the rest of the party urged her to stop. Just in case it's dangerous, they should get all the evidence out in a way before it gets pulled. So Mimith waited with eager anticipation as the party and Nandi went up the ladder into the shed, evidence in the bag of holding within Thotham's poorly tailored briefs. And you all waited for Mimith.
Pull the lever, Grunk. Wrong
As Mimith pulled the lever, the floor began to ominously rumble. The stone door of the dark room snapped shut, seemingly protecting Mimith as a myriad of explosions rang the fuck out, collapsing the tunnels and erupting the outer wall of Farah's home. As for our characters waiting in the shed, the floor blew up right from under their fucking feet. Lux grabbed Gribble. She and Nandi were the only ones to succeed the dexterity save to gracefully tumble to safety outside of the shed. Thotham and Tarth failed and found themselves caught in the explosive force. Themselves and the debris of the collapsed shed fell to a jagged 25-foot drop, leaving both men barely fucking conscious. And as the dust settled and Tarth and Thotham dizzily rose in a world of pain, Mimith was perfectly safe, but fucking trapped in the dark room with no escape. The party would be able to figure that Faisal must carry something on his person that would make himself in this scenario able to get out freely, as there was no secret exit anywhere in Mimith's chamber. To clear out the rubble and break down a large portion of the safety wall around Mimith, that would take many hands over the course of exhausting days. Farah came running out panicked, and then gave the party a good, intentioned verbal lashing. She warned you! She told you over and over again! Beware of explosions! What the hell is wrong with you all acting completely blaze about the prospect of blowing up? And just like that, the party had a sort of war flashback from the ghost of Pippet, from fucking Zombu. Much to the DM's grim amusement, thank you so much, Mimith. To be clear, you did nothing wrong. Risks and reward are all about the roleplay. I just as easily could have hit 1,000 gold with that lever, haha.
Or another victim.
But if the party never had big blunders and tragic calculations, it wouldn't be nearly as entertaining. At least not for me. Farah's supposed paranoia has now twice in one day been vindicated in the most awful ways possible. Thankfully, as you all rummaged through your inventories, Tartholomew triumphantly found one of the goofy magical items earned from Panlore's puzzle dungeon, the Potion of Yeeting, which will teleport someone 15 feet in a random direction, but safe location. So Thotham, in a world of pain, spent the next couple hours climbing in the rubble and chiseling out a big enough hole to fit the potion through, and dropped it down to the remorseful Dragonborn teen. She chugged one of the 2 doses, and found herself poofing right next to the collapsed shed. Everyone fucking exhausted, but at least now safely reunited. Farah apologized to Lux and the party for being so combative earlier, feeling like her stupidity made this all unnecessarily harder, when you all were truly just trying to help her. Lux reassured Farah there was no hard feelings, and that her denial was completely understandable considering her whole life is being thrown upside down. Lux taking this opportunity to gently reveal that the party found evidence that Faisal has been secretly taking compromising photos and recording audio of Farah for years, selling them as products. Also letting her know they found his journal confessing to killing her family, and isolating her for his own sick desires. Farah panicked, her eyes going wide with horror as they darted to each member of the party, asking if you all saw compromising photos of her. You all reassured her that only Lux saw for a flash of a moment and swiftly put it away. Lux did try to forewarn Farah that in them not looking further into the photos, that they are unsure if there might be other victims in the pile. Farah took one peek at the most recently dated box and covered her face in embarrassment, going pale and then fainting. Thotham ran forward to catch her, and you all, along with Nandi, went inside the home, which has been partially made a structural mess because of the explosion. Nandi was no longer amused by what was going on, just sitting quietly anxious while snuggling Helix, who was also shaking from surviving the explosion. Eventually, Farah's neighbor, Edwin, came over to make sure Farah was safe. After you demonstrated you were hired to help with the stalker incident, Edwin invited you all over to let Farah rest in safer conditions at his and his husband's house. As Farah rested, you all moved to discuss next steps as you were unsure what to do about Faisal. You have several days before he is due back from Zerorix. Tarth said this should be an easy case closed, and they could pass the evidence off to police to handle this monster. Mimith concurred, stating there's no point in getting their hands further dirty since sexual predators usually get beat up and sometimes killed in prison anyway. But Lux sighed, stating she wished justice was that simple. But in actuality, it rarely ever goes cleanly. Farah would be forced to testify against her abuser. She would be forced to be hyper-scrutinized by both sides, facing fucked up and traumatizing questioning along the lines of she must be setting him up to get the house for herself, or that she potentially secretly knew what he was doing and liked it. Farah would have to stop school and find a way to financially support herself during the entire process and beyond it. She relies on Faisal to get by. He is currently her sole source of stability. By his fucking design, of course. So him being locked up or killed means rearranging her life at the same time her mental health desperately is going to need a break to cope and heal from all this. Out of all serious crimes that get reported to the police, only 4.1% of cases ended with some kind of conviction. That's not taking into account the fact that twice as many serious crimes happen that don't get reported for many reasons, including the very reasons Farah is facing in our story. The Fallen's Fellowship alone can't single-handedly change society. It is what it is, and sometimes you just gotta accept that and do your best. After learning this, the party seemed to come to a somber agreement that Faisal should die by your hands. But back to Farah, who woke up after a long rest, as Edwin and Harold served you all a comforting breakfast. Farah expressed gratitude for how much you have risked yourselves for her sake, but is feeling very lost right now. When asked by the party if she'd want to confront Faisal, she convulsed and ran away to hurl. She's dreading his return. Nandi didn't sleep inside with you, but this homeless girl is lingering outside the house with a changed heart, wanting to help because she's also grateful to have her mother's cards back, and probably feeling pretty shitty about how she treated Farah after all this. To be crystal clear, there's no correct answer and no secret trick. All that remains is the age-old D&D question. What do you do?